Hello, students. Welcome to week 3. I want to do a quick wrap up of what we looked at in week 2 and then give you a quick glimpse of what we are looking at in week 3. So, in week 2, we looked at the evolution of the middle school concept. We read that it emerged shortly after World War I and really took hold after World War II because there was dissatisfaction with the K to K to 8 and then 9 to 12 model. They realized that middle schoolers were in this unique transitional period and they really deserved a unique educational experience specific to their needs. At the same time, we start though to see some interesting influences from college coming down to the middle school level because colleges started to believe that high school wasn't enough to start to prepare students for the rigor of college. So we should start to heighten the academic expectations of students earlier. And so we start to see that trickle into the middle school too. Now, some researchers say those two things could be at odds because if you're trying to cultivate and create a unique space to respond to the social emotional needs of middle schoolers in this period of transition that is difficult for many of them, adding this extra academic pressure could really thwart the success of that model. There are those who say, well, that's really not true. It would depend on the way that you implement that rigor. If you use an interdisciplinary model with a lot of real world applications that is engaging, that really responds actually to the very needs of middle schoolers. So we'll start to see that in later chapters that has been a successful model in middle schools. But the point still remains that you could put too much pressure on a middle schooler. And then on top of that, the fact that in the middle school, you have all of these students going through the same period together, it could really magnify the issues and make it seem even more stressful. That is a valid point. And in some demographics, they have found that it is actually too much and the schools are not successful. Does that mean that every middle school is not successful? Absolutely not. I do think that the success largely depends on the demographics. Even more so, I think it depends on the mission and vision of the school and the buy-in that you get from faculty to really implement that mission and vision. Middle schoolers need caring and loving faculty who understand where they're at and who are willing to not only be fantastic teachers, but who are willing to be advisors and mentors too. And if they have that, the middle school concept can really be wonderful. And the fact that these kids are all going through the same phase together can actually lead to a greater sense of community. So much of it depends on the structure. It depends on having phenomenal instructional leadership from the principal and then building a team of leaders in the faculty underneath of that principal. But those are just some things to think about. And so we read about Peter Meyer, who said, hey, there is data saying that these middle schools are not very successful for the very reasons that I just said, and that the K to 8 structure can be, just as successful, if not more, for students who are in middle school because being with younger children starts to diffuse the issues that you see when you put all these kids together that are in the same developmental period and you have the issues magnified. And in addition, they can serve as mentors for these younger children. And I know, having gone through the K to 8 structure, that I really felt like, in a certain sense, it preserved my childhood and it gave me an opportunity to be around all my younger siblings. I'm one of 8, the second. So I got to be in school with all of my younger brothers and sisters, and it kind of preserved that sense of family a little longer, which was really cool. And I loved my K to 8 small Catholic school experience. But I do have to say, when I did transition to high school, it was a huge transition academically, socially, personally. Um, and here's my thought at the end of the day. At some point, you're going to go through a transition and you're going to feel it. And so for me, that happened in ninth grade. All of a sudden, the academic rigor was so much more. And I felt like this small little fish in this huge pond. And so I felt very self-conscious. And I had to work through a lot of those things that I probably would have worked through earlier if I had gone to middle school. But regardless, you're going to go through a period of transition. When is the best time for that transition to occur? Again, I think that that depends on a lot. I think it's a very layered issue. I think demographics play a huge role. The needs of the area play a huge role in the success of a K to 8th versus a middle school model. But even more so, again, that mission and vision of the school, the buy-in from the faculty, and having a phenomenal servant leader as a principal who is willing to help mold the school culture to be what he or she knows will respond to the needs of the students that are there. I think that that really, really impacts the success of whatever model it is that you implement. So I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts on the Meyer versus textbook view of middle schools and the K to 8 structure. That wraps up everything we looked at in week 2. In week 3, we continue to talk about the evolution of middle school because I talked about the academic piece coming down and starting to prepare these students more for college. So we see this influx of a standards-based revolution in middle schools. And that really becomes the emphasis of week 3 and chapter 3, which we will be reading. And we will have a discussion on differentiating for tweens and teens. Because remember, they are at this developmental period that is different. Their needs are different. And so to reach them and to engage them requires some different pedagogy. And that's what we look at this week. You're also introduced to your case study project. Now, you only have to do one case study analysis in this class, and you can do it individually, or if you'd like to do it with a classmate, that's fantastic. You get to pick from 2 different scenarios, and they're very different. One has to do with middle schoolers evaluating their teacher's performance, and the other one has to do with bilingual education in the middle school. It actually has to do with teachers learning a second language so that they can teach English second language students in both languages. And it's a very interesting scenario that you're given. Now, when you read through both, initially you might think, I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to answer the questions in either of these. But you really do, especially for case study 1, which has to do with middle schoolers evaluating their teachers. A lot that will feed into this is what you already know about the stage of development that middle schoolers are at. So you will utilize that to help support your answers. And in addition, I give you a few other resources that you can consult, and you can just cite those very resources that I give to you in your case study reference section. Now, for the second one about bilingual education and teachers learning a second language, you really might need a little bit more. And the good news is this, that next week we look at culturally responsive teaching, and that will help you to support your answers to some of the case study questions. And in addition, I give you resources to consult just to give you the extra information that you might need to answer those questions. So choose the case study scenario that you find the most interesting. Again, even though these case studies are specific to middle schools, I picked ones that concern larger issues that you could confront whether you end up teaching at an elementary school or even a high school, because several of you are dual candidates, so you're intervention specialists, and you could end up teaching in a high school too. So these are things that you would want to think about regardless. So they have topic matter that could translate to any school setting. That is everything with respect to this week. You will notice at the tail end it says to study for your test next week. I just want you to be aware that, hey, we have a test next week. And the best way to prepare is to have read the text well, to highlight the key points, because it's going to be an essay test. You get ample time, so I don't want you to worry about it. But you need to be able to know where the key material is in there so that when you read the essay question, you can go back in the text, locate it, and utilize the text material to support your response. But I don't want you to stress at all about this. I know you have a lot on your plates. You have plenty of time to do the essay test. I believe it's 3 or 4 questions, and that's it. So I look forward to engaging in discussion with you this week. And if you have any questions over the case studies you get started, in particular, if you decide to work with a peer, the best way to do that is to set up a shared document in Google Docs and to work there. I think this is a nice opportunity to continue to engage and form some sense of community, which I think is important given everything that's going on with COVID. I don't want you to feel isolated. And I know that that can very well happen with all the enhanced online components that we've integrated into our courses due to COVID. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or feel free to stop by during my office hours on Tuesday and Thursday from 11 to 1:30. I'm in Egan 262. Happy Feast Day, St. John Bosco. Great educator and patron saint of school children. Please pray for us, St. John Bosco. God bless. Bye.